Are you sick and tired of losing buy-in after buy-in in your multi-table tournaments? In fact, are you tired of barely min cashing and missing out on those big top placing paydays? Not after this video, my friends. In fact, I'm going to teach you 5 essential strategies that you can apply immediately and start crushing your tournaments starting this week. Also, stay to the end of this video, and what you're going to get is a final table strategy that gets myself and my coaching students into those final 3 spots, those podium spots, 33% of the time that we make a final table. That's right. How would you like, by just staying to the end of this and applying what you learn inside of here, tilting in your favor, that you're going to get one of those first, second, or third place spots where all the money is 33% of the time that you make a final table? You're going to be making a lot more final tables if you apply these 5 essential tips. I know it says beginner, but these are the foundations that all professional poker players play and utilize. And if you want to be profitable and you want to make this poker passion a profitable habit, then jump in. Be the shark, not the fish. Let's go. So, jumping straight into this, guys. I'm the Tiburon, or Tibby, or Double T, or Tibby, or T, or whatever you want to call me, as long as it's along those lines. I've been that for forever. And it started as a live moniker that I just started utilizing online as well. But my parents named me this boring name of Zach Marcy. I respond to that one too. I've been playing poker for 2 decades. And of that time, I've coached people at the low and micro stakes for cash and multi-table tournaments for about 10 of those years. The most important thing you need to know is I've personally never had a losing year. I've also not even had losing consecutive months. And the poker strategies that I'm going to teach you, especially when it comes to multi-table tournaments online, which are now where I have personally specialized, if you're following these tips, you too can have those same kind of results. But it starts by building a good foundation. And the foundation that we're going to jump into with these 5 tips is going to get you to exactly where you need to be, with having a foundation of profitability very early on in either your poker career or taking this poker thing pretty serious. Um, and let's jump straight into these strategies real quick. So we're doing this from the top down. And when it comes to being a shark and not a fish at these stakes, it requires, when you go through any learning aspect of poker, to be an active learner and not a passive learner. This is part of our Be the Shark mindset tip. Be an active learner. Right now, open a Google Sheet or open like notes on your iPhone or Android, whatever you may use, or even go grab a pen and a piece of paper. Actually, I have that over there, but I always use Google Sheets now, so I don't ever lose anything and have it available everywhere. Um, Open a Google Sheet. Just underneath this actual video, you're going to see these 5, actually it's 6 tips down below, but underneath each one, I provided homework for you to be able to go through and actively apply all of this as you play. So you're going to have starting hand ranges. You're going to have homework that you're going to be taking notes on as you go through and play each time. Stick with each strategy as you go throughout these weeks. Stick with them for about minimum 2 days, preferably once you get past strategy number 1, try to do it for about 5 to 7 days. And then once you've gotten this as a strategy that is ingrained in you, the shark, uh, move to the next one. This is top down, and let me explain how that works. Go ahead, copy and paste the homework and these 6 tips into your Google Sheet, and let's talk through these 6 tips. The first is game selection, and that's playing at the micro and low stakes. Next, once you're in the game, you need to understand what hands to play at what positions at the table. And that's what strategy number 2 is. Then, once you know what hands to play, you have to know how to make those adjustments through each stage of a multi-table tournament. And that's where starting smart and understanding early stage play comes in. Then, in order to maximize capitalizing on a weak player pool, people that have tendencies of like overplaying top pair, you're not going to do that anymore. But instead, you're going to maximize in both the starting, middle, and late stages, two pair or better strategy. And we'll get into that here in tip number 4. Then we're going to adapt as stack sizes change. And they fluctuate very greatly from really deep stacks early to very shallow stacks or mid range stacks late, depending upon how well you're playing and how lucky you do wind up getting throughout the tournament. But you're going to have to adapt how you play when you have different stack sizes and how you play when other people have different stack sizes versus your stack. Last but not least, we jump in, we start talking about how to play around the money bubbles, but most importantly, when you do make it to the final table. Once you've applied all 5 of these tips, getting to the final table and maximizing it is just going to be something that you do all the time because you're a shark. Be the shark. Uh, Go ahead, put these into your Google Sheet. I'll wait for you real quick, and then we'll jump into the next slide. Cool. Now that you've done that, go ahead and like and subscribe down below. Helps with the YouTube algorithm. Not to mention, I have a series coming up that builds upon this one. And you need to know when the next in the series is going to come out. And you only get that by hitting that notification button. You see the little bell that's there, that's right down below. So every time I either go live and do a play and explain, or I post a new video, you're going to get it because you've done that. Thank you so much for doing this. It goes a long way to help me provide more content like this for you. It also lets me know I need to do more like this. But go ahead, like, subscribe. I'll wait for you. All right. Now that you've done that, thank you so much. Let's jump straight into this, guys. So, why play at the micro stakes? You're probably here because you're either a beginner or somebody that is not having the results that you want. You need a better foundation. And quite frankly, the micro and low stakes are where the competition is softer and you can start building your skills better and build your bankroll better. So, starting at the small stakes, you face weaker players. You get to the $1 to, let's say, $5 range. It's going to be a lot more beginner players kind of splashing around, just having fun. So, you'll be on not just equal footing, but you're going to be better than the player pool. And you don't lose as much money. You're going to be a better player than a lot of the other ones at the table. And as you build your way up and build your bankroll up, you'll have risked a lot less to get better and won a lot more. And I don't know about you, but I love winning. It's kind of like the whole reason why I play poker. If there was no money or financial reward for it, I probably wouldn't do it because I don't want to play just free chips. Like, I want to win money. I think it's why you're here too. It also protects your bankroll. So if you lose 10 buy-ins at $1, you're going to lose $10, right? But if you lose 10 buy-ins at $55, you're going to lose 550. What if you lose 10 buy-ins at $1,000 per buy-in? Crap. How quickly could you potentially go to financial ruin? Trust me, I've had plenty of students that have come to me that over the course of years have lost tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, that's a true story, and it's happened more than probably 20 times. And I don't want that to be you. I want you to, from the outset, to be able to build your bankroll and take an average like $500 to $2,000 a month, which is very doable here. Taking your family on vacations, or going that buying that sports car that you want, or whatever you want to spend it on. But maybe you're doing it just for a retirement side income to add to your retirement. Whatever the case may be, I want you making money off of this, and that's kind of the whole point. Let's jump into some of the guidelines. So first, I want you to start with at least 100 tournament buy-ins in your bankroll. So if you're playing $1 MTTs, you need to be at about $100 in your bankroll. Next, when you're taking shots up and you start building up, I don't want you to risk more than about 2 to 3% of your overall bankroll per tournament. So let's say that you have $200. I don't want you to go and try $4 tournaments. Not yet. Like you're just not quite there. Like they shouldn't cost more than $4. Sorry, I don't want you risking it with $5 tournaments just yet. And as you build it up, let's say you get to $500, and then you can start adding in some of those $5. Hopefully, you wind up winning at that stake. You can stay there, and you build upon that from there. Uh, so that's it for tip number one. Play at the micro and low stakes. I do want you to jump into your homework real quick. And this is pretty quick. This one you probably only have to spend. You could probably do this in a day, and I'm okay with that. Go ahead, write down your micro stakes bankroll. Write down how much you're willing to risk. Like let's say, okay, I have $100, or you're going to go and deposit yourself up to whatever stake that you want to play. I highly don't recommend, if you're following this, I would not go over the $11 range. Not yet. But write down and move your bankroll up to whatever that level is. Write down whatever it is, and then write down the tournaments that you're going to wind up playing in at that stake on your favorite sites, and stick to it. Stick to it for a couple of days. Let me know how you do, and then jump into the next tip. All right. Tip number two, or strategy number two: play selectively, not recklessly, with hand selection. I got to put my glasses on to see the detail of the hand ranges here. But uh, so our first mantra is be the shark, not the fish. Our second mantra is tight is right. I want you to immediately. So what I want you to do is go ahead, copy it. It's down below in your homework. You'll have all of these position by position ranges. And I'm not going to talk you through all of these. Like, you can read them yourself. Just so you understand the notation here, 8 plus means you're going to be playing, like you see the chart here. You're going to be playing 8, and then every pair plus that goes all the way up to aces. If you see ace queen, you're looking at ace queen here all the way up, and then ace queen here all the way up. King jack suited, ace jack suited, which is here, and then better. Oops. And then talk about misclick. At least it wasn't misclicking money in the pot, right? King queen suited, etc. You're going to. This is tighter than most GTO ranges. Game theory optional. Game theory optimal ranges. We start a little bit tighter, and then as you become a more skilled player, we start to deviate from playing too tight to more GTO ranges. When you learn how to hand read better, when you learn how to read your opponents better. So don't deviate from this in the beginning until you really learn how to what your value range is going to be from each position, and you really learn how the dynamics of the game works, especially as like hand values change as you go through each, like the turn, the flop, the turn, the river, and the dynamics of suitedness and all of that. It's way too much for this early in the game. Just stick to these ranges, copy and paste them in, study it before you go into a tournament. Then as you're going through the tournament, make sure you're sticking to those ranges, and write down notes on how you're playing with each one. Did you deviate from this? What happened when you did? When you didn't deviate from it, how did you wind up doing? One of the biggest mistakes beginner players or unprofitable players make is playing too many hands. And by playing strong hands, you reduce the risk of being up against a better hand, and you increase your chance of winning big pots. Remember, sharks are patient, disciplined, and focused. You'll be on the path to like stacking people real easy when you stick with just these ranges, and don't deviate from them for at least 1 week's worth of sessions until you start getting really comfortable with it. And make sure that you're folding out those tricky, crappy hands like queen 9 off or jack 8 off and ace 6 off. So, shark homework: use those starting charts each time that you play a game and you have a break, or you're done with a game and you bust out or you win, review 10 hands where you had situations where you're kind of confused or maybe deviated from this and probably should have went back to, and then write out just 3 adjustments you're going to make for the next tournament. Try to stick with just playing about 1 to 2 games at a time and no more. That way you can really be taking notes and sticking to these ranges. Tip number 2, or strategy number 2, play selectively with your hand selection. Number 3, early stage start smart. Early stages of MTTs is about patience and chipping up. It is not about trying to get this big, humongous stack and put yourself at risk left and right. Remember, and this is a Be the Shark adage, you can lose a tournament before the money bubble, but you can't win one. Again, you can lose and bust yourself out of a tournament before the money bubble in the early stages or middle stages, but you can't win a tournament then. That's the kind of approach that you're going to take with each hand going in these early stages. You want to commit to a tight strategy, avoid big bluffs, especially when you're just learning how to do this. There's no point in taking unnecessary risk when you don't need to. Don't enter a bunch of multi-way pots or 3-bet pots unless you have a premium hand. Here's a good example. I had King Queen. I'm not going to talk you through all of the nuance of this, but I had big stack. This dude raises under the gun. I know he's probably going to have a pretty tight range because he's opening from early position. This guy who had not played a hand in about 30 minutes, and also here we are at the final table, is risking his half of his stack when there's another stack that has very little money left behind him. He's risking his basically his stack, but he wants to get this fish on the hook because he's a sharky player. So he puts in a small 3-bet that's going to get him to call and potentially get some other people to call, but not me. With just a less than his 3-bet left behind, dude's got to have a really big hand to play it like this. He's not trying to get a fold; he's trying to get a call here. And he didn't want to run the risk of jamming it all in, and this guy just folding out and not calling. So I was like, hey, this isn't premium. This is probably going to go multi-way. He probably has a stronger range than I would by flatting here. I think I'm going to avoid a mix-up and I'm going to fold. And sure enough, this guy had tens. This guy had kings. It wound up working out, and I wound up going on to win the tournament. There's a bunch of different things. Like I could talk about how even if I flatted and he flatted behind, ace hits on the board and I don't know how to play it because he's got all the aces. He could put some pressure on me, and if I show passiveness, like with that ace out there, I wouldn't know what to do. The other thing is, even if I tried pushing him off the pot, I'm not going to win the pot because this guy's all in. He's not going anywhere. Like it was just a tough scenario. I folded, shared this with you guys. So don't enter 3-way pots or 3-bet pots without a premium hand. And make sure you avoid chasing draws unless you have the pot odds to do it. If you don't understand how pot odds work, here's a real easy thought process as a beginner player to learn. If you have a gut shot and somebody's betting, just fold. You don't know what a gut shot is, go look it up. If you have an open-ended straight draw on the flop or you have a flush draw on the flop, somebody bets 30% or less, and you have more than 30 big blinds, take one card and see if you hit it. If you do, great. Start piling the money in. Hopefully you have these ace high flush or the absolute best straight. If you don't, then you need to play passively or potentially fold. If your opponent then, if you don't hit and your opponent keeps barreling, you can't check back, just fold. It's really that easy. Just do that with your straights and your flushes. And don't make it more tricky than that. So here's your shark homework. Track how many hands you played in your first 3 levels of your last game. Did you chase too many draws? Did you enter 3-way pots? Did you not bluff at all, or did you bluff, and how did it go? And did you stick with the starting strategies? Write that down, get it done, and build upon that as your next week. Hit there at tip number 3 or strategy number 3. Strategy number 4, stop overvaluing top pair. So, like, this is the biggest leak and probably one of the biggest adjustments that you can make where you're going to stack people early and well playing the strategy. The average winning hand in poker is 2 pair. So if you wind up flopping top 2 pair, and let's say it's like ace king and you flop ace king 4, and you got somebody, you're facing some aggression, it's okay to go ahead and get all your chips in if you possibly can, knowing that they're going to call, or to check 3 bet, or to start piling money in. You want to make sure there's no heavy draws. If there's heavy draws, you need to slow down and potentially not get as many chips in. But the other thing is you want to make sure that when you're trying to extract max value, that your opponent is also going to be at least strong enough or fishy enough to pay you off. So knowing that this is a strategy for you to get more chips, especially in the mid positions of the tournament when you are looking to chip up and get to one of the bigger stacks to put pressure on people, don't go in the opposite direction. So if you're going to max exploit people with top 2 pair or really good hands where there's no redraw or sets, things like that, make sure that you don't do this on the other side. So, like if you have flop top pair with a weak kicker, king deuce, and flop comes out king 7-4, you're not going to start just piling chips in with a really crappy kicker and top pair, because you more than likely are going to be dominated by another king or somebody that's raising pre-flop. There's potential to lose a really big pot and potentially not really win that much with just top pair. Try to avoid going all in, even with top pair great kicker, because remember, top 2 pair or top pair is the average winning hand. As you see here, I actually wound up overplaying on I called off even though I 3 bet, I called off a turn jam here with just ace king. Dude wound up showing a lot of aggression on the turn. When he hit the 7, I called it off. This is a marginal spot to call off. Most of the time you're going to be pretty good, but I wasn't here. And that's the reason why I went into the final. I wound up, this is 2 tables before the final table. And I actually think I wound up barely getting to the final table and eking out an 8th place finish in this one. And it hurt. And this is the big pot that wound up costing me because I overplayed top pair. Also, if you're facing aggression from a really tight player, just fold. Like if you're not with the absolute nuts and you know it, and a tight player is really piling it on you, you're probably beat. For the most part, when a tight player starts getting it all in like that, I see 2 pair or sets more times than not, and I just make sure I don't overplay top pair. All right, homework. Find 3 hands where you lost a really big pot with top pair. Anytime that you have 2 pair or better and you start piling it in, make sure there's no draws or potential for sets, and you start getting it in. Tell me how much money you wound up winning, or write down how much money you won, and should you have folded on the non-top or the top pair hands, and what other lessons can you take away from those 2 pair or better hands, and how can you maximize those spots and maximize the 2 pair or better spots? How can you minimize the top pair or worse spots? Strategy number 5, adapt to stacks. So this one is going to make or break you all throughout the tournament. And remember, we're trying to run deeper in tournaments. So you're going to have a fluctuating stack, but so too are your opponents. Remember, sharks adapt to their surroundings. Your strategy is going to change when you have 10 big blinds, 20 big blinds, or 30 big blinds. And don't look at any nuance outside of these 4 starting stack ranges. We're going to kind of lump 30 to 100 big blinds or 200 big blinds into the same category just to make this easy. 30 big blinds, you want to be playing like I think it was tip number 2 of hand selection. With 30 big blinds up to 200 big blinds, that's what you're going to be playing with. There's some nuance to this. I know what it is about taking out suited connectors when you're super deep, but for now, that's how you're going to play. 20 to 30 big blinds, you have the potential of entering into a pot and getting it all in if you bet all three streets. And that's the reason why you want to adjust and play tighter. But know that your opponents are probably going to be doing the same. So you want to play tighter. You want to take some of those suited connectors out. You might even want to move up in your small pairs that you're going to be playing at each position by 1 to 2 range pips. So let's say you're allowed yourself to open with 2-2, go up to 4-4 instead, and take out some of those speculative suited connector hands like 5-4, 6-5, things like that. And that's why, because you could potentially be all in by the river, and you want to make sure that you maximize your value and don't punt off your chips with speculative hands. Avoid flat calls. You're not doing this anyway, but with 10 to 20 big blinds, you want to use this as a rejam stack. So all of your premium hands are going to wind up like rejamming right with an all you can eat buffet with like ace king suited or better, jacks or better, um, maybe even ace king off in some circumstances, aces for sure. And you're not going to flat anything. So you're either raise or fold. Um, and just do this with strong hands. You might want to shrink your range 2 pips on each thing, just a little bit more. And just make sure that you're putting pressure on some of the equal stacks or shallow stacks with your real premium hands and getting back up over that 30 big blind mark. That's your intention. Now, with the 10 big blinds or less, you're on shove fold. And in fact, this is kind of like a shove fold, like a big blind shove or small blind versus big blind shove fold range. Everything red is what you jam in, all in from the small blind. Everything in the lighter color red is everything that you're just going to call or raise with. And then all of this is what you fold with. Here at 10 big blinds or less, you don't want to get too crazy. You do want to play about the same hand range as you would with 10 to 20 big blinds. You don't want to get too crazy, but you do want to be all in or fold. Now, with that said, is your shark homework. Track 10 hands where you had each stack and talk about what you did. Did you adjust enough? Did you play right? Did you adjust to your opponents? Did they adjust to you? And what can you take away from it? Last but not least, let's bring it home with ICM strategy at the final table. So I'm going to zoom through this. When you reach the final table, guys, it's time to look at the independent chip model. ICM changes the value of your chips because of pay jumps. Now they're more important than chip accumulation. So sharks know how to climb the payout ladder without risking their whole stack. Here's some strategies. Avoid unnecessary risk. Don't call all-ins unless you have monster hands like ace, king suited, or jacks. Pressure your short stacks. So like raise their blinds, especially if you have less than like 10 to 15 big blinds, but do it with smaller bets, really putting pressure on them. Don't call off light. Don't just flat call with like ace jack off or eights. It can be dangerous when you're at risk of elimination. And protect your tournament life. Look at the payout jumps. They're massive, and if they're really big, and you look around at the stack, let's say you have 20 big blinds and so do 3 other people, it's a really big mistake to bust before them. So know that. Look to kind of snug up your ranges and don't make light calls or leak chips. Here's your homework on this. Review, once you make it to a final table, take a look and see, did you risk too many chips on marginal calls? Write down 3 adjustments that you'd like to make. Did you consider everybody's chip stacks, what they might be doing, what you should be doing, and write all of that down and what adjustments you're going to make in the future going forward. All right, guys, that's it from me. If you haven't liked and subscribe, make sure you do. Let's recap the tips real quick. Play at the micro stakes, playing games where people of the same skill level or worse are your opponents. Play selective and not reckless. Play strong hands and fold weak ones to chip up. Start early. Start strategy smartly. No wild aggression. Only play strong hands. Number 4, stop overvaluing top pair. Top pair isn't always a winning hand. Exploit your 2 pair or better hands and be willing to fold if you face too much aggression. Number 5, adapt to the stack sizes. Adjust your strategy for 30, 20, and 10 big blinds. And last but not least, in your ICM strategy at the final table, pay jumps are real. Don't gamble on marginal hands. That's it for me. Take this advice seriously.